Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us at the Struction Site Summit. I am Kaylin Langiza, the Director of Marketing here at Struction Site, and I am joined for a conversation on tech forward, evolving technology through generational shifts by Jenny Moshea, the Head of Technology at Sellen Construction. Thank you so much for joining us, Jenny.
Of course. Thanks, Kaylin.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great to be here.
Oh, I love having you here. So basically, for this conversation, we're going to be talking about generational shifts and getting into it right away. At Sellen Construction, what are the age ranges of the generations you have working at the company?
Yeah, it's actually fascinating. We recently looked at that for our training ecosystem, and we have ages ranging from 19 to 70 years old in our active staff. So lots of different ways of thinking about things and receiving information.
That's fantastic. And with that, there's obviously the evolution of technology and the evolutionary of processes and procedures. How do you think that's shifted in focus even just in the last 5 years?
Yeah, well, even in the last 5 months, we've been on quite an accelerated journey. And, as technology and especially the construction industry go through this, digital transformation in more profound ways, we're finding it's definitely, it doesn't matter your age necessarily. It's, just different folks and styles and personalities and ways of learning that we're having to be more creative than ever to meet people where they are on their training and technology journey. And, as a matter of thinking about the way that we serve our staff as a technology team, really thinking about that, being accepting of others. And I think of our servant leadership guiding principles at Sellen and how we approach, our philosophy around our staff and just really embracing folks along their journey and where they're at and understanding that everyone learns at a different pace or needs different repetitive doses. And some people are learning life skills for the first time. So it's exciting to think of it in that aspect, that we're giving people more than just what's in their job now and setting them up on whatever journey or promotion path they may have or career lattice that they may embark on.
That's fantastic. What are some of the methods that you're seeing on those, meeting employees where they're at, learning trajectories have been the most sticky and have had some of the best reception?
Yeah, well, for sure. I give examples to other industry apps and vendors that I continue to say about Struction Site is if you make it easier for people, it's just more comfortable and adaptable and just different techniques with embracing the behaviors of people where they're at now and just using what they already are familiar with. So it can be as simple as, like the app on the phone versus using the camera app, which is my example for Struction Site. All we're doing is have people move their finger over a little bit on their phone screen or their mobile device screen. They're not actually fundamentally having to go somewhere different, and their behavior can be very similar. And same thing with just the simplest thing, even when it comes to file share navigation and finding things and then moving people into the Office 365 space, for example, and making the experience look like the file shares and the same thing. So just trying to make it like for like to the extent possible. We did that recently with a huge ERP migration where the goal was to not look any different initially. And then we'll layer on changes as people have the appetite for it and as new functions and processes emerge, because we don't want to overwhelm people, especially in this remote state. It's a lot to take on all at once. And so just kind of making it as familiar for people to step into it. And, and other examples of that are some of our, recent creative solutions to get people more comfortable in the 2D to 3D model shift. Mm-hmm. Going from the flat world to the 3D model.
You had mentioned that there was an employee that had recently been promoted into a new position that had never used a laptop before. What are
Yeah.
some of the methods that, that in talking like through these, making things easy, that even just bringing somebody to that point
Yeah.
and getting them on board with that, how you took that differently?
Yeah, you really taught, it brings us back to our bearings as far as a technology team, where we've been used to this for many years of our career, and not taking for granted anything. So ensuring that, a person that's just using a device for the first time, whether or not it's, the remote schooling in the background here and the workforce, just not assuming that they're used to figuring out how to connect to the internet or use that hotspot or get that connectivity or flip open that laptop for the first time. So we're spending, we're investing in those people in one-on-one area, and those folks appreciate it. But we do that with a lot of folks as they get promoted or change roles in the company, because they have a whole new set of variables in their new role. And they may never have gotten used to the simplest, in what some people's minds might have been the simplest tool over here, but they were doing completely different function over there. So we just want to embrace that and make sure that they're cared for along the way. We're large, but we're small enough where we can still take care of one human at a time when we need to.
That's great. That's great. Now, since COVID, how has this caused your team to adapt to your training philosophies, and how have those changed?
Yeah, well, for sure, we're doing things more in micro bits and more YouTube-ish types of approach when it comes to video recordings and getting snippets of information out in doses and layers. And I've been leveraging our marketing department to spin things up in a more fancy and graphical way. So the more visual people can get their eyes around it, they can get their arms around it, because we can't touch it right now. In a lot of cases, we can't be next to each other and throwing ideas on a whiteboard or showing the physical apparatus in a lot of cases. Where possible, we are going out to our job sites and, with the physical equipment, and we're able to walk people through, the instructions. But we also want to be respectful of the space constraints that our job sites are in along the way, and the restrictions around distancing and being safe and keeping our families healthy.
100%. That's a huge thought for all minds involved at the moment. So kind of on that thread, have you seen an acceleration of collaboration tools in your job sites and amongst your various generational employees that are giving more access and more availability to them in the field?
Absolutely. It's been exciting for the technology team to see the acceleration and the wave, and we're kind of riding the wave of that adoption, forced adoption, if you will. But when it happens faster, it's like the simplest thing. We've kind of skipped over some of the usual training we would have done in the simplest things like Zoom or any of the video conferencing platforms, for example. It would have taken a lot longer to get there. But we're already sending out advanced feature tips and tricks for folks that are craving and asking for it. And even as simple as, with our state's requirements and having to comply with job site check-in compliance, we're doing things that wherever we can that are touchless, entryless, where you're not actually physically signing into a physical piece of paper and pen anymore. You're hovering over a QR code, and we're doing things like that along the way, where we've actually created a solution where we can check people in through a QR code process. They use their own device to check in. And so we know if they pass or fail for the requirements of the state to pass through the gates. And that way, and some of the feedback from the foreman and the superintendents was like, where has this been all our life? Like, they just want to do it COVID or not. And so it's been real interesting. And in other cases, our owners are having to collaborate for the first time through remote situations, because people don't want to get in a big room with 30 people around the table. And so we're being asked for more things that are, digital poll planning or other functions that they were going to be on the roadmap eventually for project teams, but they're happening faster.
That's great. One of the things in our pre-call that you mentioned was the ability of using an Xbox controller to fly through a model. How has that put, the newest realms of technology and availability into the hands of those in various generations in your teams?
Yeah, that was a super fun one. So we had a 19-year-old intern, the son of one of our accounting staff last summer, And he created what is now our patent pending technology around an Xbox controller to navigate through a Navisworks model. And so it helped every age in our first pilots was just like, give it to me, and just loving the ease and familiarity. And I'm not a gamer, so I would have no idea what to do with the Xbox controller, but it was well received because people just, that's their downtime at home. So we've got now Sellen branded Xbox controllers that we send out to job sites, and they like that over the clunkiness of the mouse. And so they can customize their controls. And then that way it's making it more of a fun or game, or it's more intriguing to try out the 3D space and so it's a way for our folks to step in more comfortably to the 3D model world. In some cases for the first time. It's not so alien.
Yeah, exactly. It's not something that you've never seen before, but something that you can actually handle and fly through yourself.
Yeah.
What have been some of the largest struggles that Sellen has seen when it comes to technology onboarding, no matter the generation?
Oh, I think by far the number one thing we see is you can take any amount of technology needs to be supported and well thought through with a process and a workflow. And so there is more thought and care around whenever we introduce a new piece of technology, where in the workflow does that go? How does that inform our project delivery plans and our operational excellence? And keeping in mind the end-to-end flow of information that our job and teams are having to, interact with along the way. And so how does this remove a process or a step or several steps, hopefully? And how is it different? Because we're finding, in a lot of cases, you're not necessarily, it may be more efficient, but it has other ramifications in what you do with that data and how you archive that data. And then how do you bundle that data for the owner at handoff? Some of the contracts we still have are from many years ago, and they require a printed out stack of binders at handoff and closeout. So we still have to do that, even though, we obviously are in a digital age and that's coming around and our contracts are changing, but we still have to bridge the legacy world and requirements as we move to new technology solutions and improve process along the way. Hopefully it's always an improved process, but sometimes it takes time and practice to get there.
You just brought up a very interesting thought. It's not just how we're handling it in our own companies, but handling generational gaps within the industry itself. Do you think that plays heavily into our adoption of technology and the abilities for generations to really grab onto it because of the fact that we've been not necessarily moving as quickly as some other industries, but we're catching up?
Yeah, I think so. And I think there's a balance of folks that have been traditionally in the job security space that they know we need to get their brains on paper so they can go off and retire and enjoy themselves. So I think there's understanding that we need to capture more of that secret sauce and the essence of how people approach things from a thought leadership level around roles and functions so that it can make our workflows that much better.
Yeah, absolutely. Another point with that is, how are you bridging the generations within the company to transfer that knowledge? As you're mentioning, marching off to retirement, ready to go, but you have a world of knowledge in your head that can help on any project that Sellen has seen. So what's some of the things that you may do as a company that could potentially help bring up younger generations to understand that history?
Yeah, well, we actually have, boosted our learning, teaching and learning side of our strategy. And that we've actually recently hired a leader that is director of continuous development. And so that role actually is overseeing that legacy and creation of training that will carry us through beyond our current generation. So that we're in a good place for the next generation to rise.
Absolutely. Where do you think and what do you think Sellen's technology looks like in 5 to 10 years from now?
Oh gosh, I was just all excited. I finished my 3-year look ahead. No, I can see this whole industry is on the cusp of greatness when it comes to construction tech, and so many new things are coming so fast. And it's so interesting because, when I saw Spot the Robot at a conference last fall, I thought, oh yeah, we're a long time from that. But just the other day, our layout team's like, yeah, so there's this thing called Spot the Robot. I'm like, okay, it's time, it's coming, because we already want better ways, smarter ways of capturing that data in an autonomous way. And they're like, yeah, we'll just hook up the struction site, scanning camera, and just pop it on Spot's head, and we'll be good to go. So the connections and the synapses are coming, and they're making these connections on their own, and it's thrilling. And just the other day, one of our superintendents whipped up a solution with his own QR code, and it helps give visibility around people just walking up to the job site looking for work. And so when they don't have work at this job site A, the other superintendents can look into this space and see that there's a worker with specialized skills that they could use in job site B. So these are things I'm like, let her rip. Like, this is fun, and I don't have to be a bottleneck in technology, but I appreciate, they're vetting it with me, and we do some tuning and we make sure it's scalable and operational. But then we sniff test it, and it was done in a couple of days. We had it out the door, ready to go.
That's incredible.
He announced it, and it was great.
That's fantastic. And
self-service technology for all. Controlled. Yeah, a little bit controlled. But.
a little bit controlled, but still, like, see a need, fill a need. Obviously, there was a problem. He had the opportunity to generate something, and he did it. That's great.
And a problem I never even knew existed. Like, I didn't know. People just, conceptually it makes sense, but I never knew it was that obvious.
Yeah. Wow, that's fantastic.
The other thing, anything where you're trying to eliminate physical paper, and people they put their name on a clipboard. We can't do the clipboards anymore with COVID. So anything is a candidate for that when it comes to the physical environment.
It seems that your company is definitely now, adopting technology, but encouraging internal team members to foster technological ideas. How have you seen things like this and additional ways across your organization thrive?
Yeah, well, in we have a fresh crop of new employees every once in a while. I just had one last week, and so every time I'm meeting with them for our briefings and introduction session, I'm encouraged to come to me with ideas, thought bubbles, connections, things they experienced in other companies, other industries that might be valuable to sell. So just forward and surface it up. And even the other day, one of our safety managers from one of those sessions said, hey, is there something we can do over here in this way, a little bit differently? And so exploring those things, and at least letting people know what tools we do have and what we could, extend to help make their role easier and better is all very exciting.
Fantastic. How are you and Sellen as a company seeing adoption of technology in various forms that's making it easy? What do you think is going to be the key for having a piece of technology get adopted?
Yeah, the key, that's a great question. The key to me and others, if you think about examples over our history where major transformations occurred, for example, the iPhone, the introduction of the iPhone, and how, that was so foreign of a concept that you would have the computer in the palm of your hand or your jeans pocket. But now it's like, it's core to our nature that we can't do without our devices. And so anything that is intuitive and natural and easy for the human or the person to step into and engage with, the better. I sometimes, as a test of technology we're about to roll out, will give it to my 7-year-old and just see how easy it is for her to pick it up. Because, and we did that with the Xbox controller. She just started zooming through the model, and she didn't even know what a model was, but she knew that those were pipes and there's a roof and there's a crane that she could see in the model. And so, recruiting the next generation and bringing that forward and seeing how gentle we can be on the person having to change their way of doing things. So it's just a lot. We ask a lot of our foremen. They're in the, in the crux of the pivot of the job site and the liaison for so many activities. So I'm always, thinking they're my test. Just adding to their plate, or are we taking anything off their plate? And so we're making it any easier along the way that they don't have to just get buried in process and procedure.
Yeah, that's a great point for sure. Any other final thoughts on generations in the workplace and in construction in general?
Oh gosh, I could go on and on. I think it's
Continue on.
and I love the journey we're on, and I love the industry, and I it's so fun to have, the other day, and even another meeting I was in, the father of one of our safety managers, who's an accountant, and he's like, my daughter's coming on, and she's got these ideas, and they're in totally different functions, but it's like family, and it's a real small networked industry. And I think we're all doing a great job of helping each other in our peer groups. We're all talking constantly. There's some benefits of the virtual world, and that, it's a lot easier to catch people across the nation and get some best practices input than ever before, instead of waiting for a big conference and getting on a plane and the hotels and all that. But at the same time, I think we all miss the physical 3D aspect of the high fives and the group hugs. And so it's just a matter of nurturing that. But I do find myself excited. I never know what I'm going to get when I see who's calling me, regardless of their age. It's like a box of candy, because it's like never what I expect. And it's super exciting and fun. And they're excited to learn about technology. And it's our job to make it easier for them to ask and to not be afraid to come to us with questions that they'll say, I'm sorry if it's a stupid question. It really isn't a stupid question. It's just you haven't crossed that bridge yet. And so it's our job to help them with those bridges and that journey along the way.
Building bridges one generation and one city at a time, right?
For sure. And we have some Zoom bridges that are afar.
I love it.
All good.
And your point about technology now enabling the transfer of knowledge and these peer groups across the nation, but the high fives are definitely missed in the conference halls and on the job sites, for sure.
For sure. Super fun.
Well, thank you so much, Jenny. We greatly appreciate the conversation. And this recording will be available after the session. And thank you all for joining.
Thanks so much.